Hi, welcome to my YouTube videos about being a paraplegic. Thank you for dropping by, and if you've been here before, welcome back. If you haven't, today's going to be a little different than what I've been doing recently. Recently, I've been reading short stories that I have written about being a paraplegic or about disability, and um, and they've been pretty wild and crazy. They've been about octopus. They've been about a dog. They've been about um, people in the future where everyone's in a wheelchair. It's been all over the place with it. And the one thing that they all had in common is they have to do with disability, and in one shape or the other. So it was the one shape. The shape would always be disability. So anyway, today I want to just talk about something a little different because, but it's still on the same theme because it has to do with that collection that I was creating. I'm done with it. I have finished writing. I hit my word count that I wanted to have for the short stories, and there are 17 of them total, many of which I've read here on my YouTube channel. And now the next step is I want to get it published. And the name of the book, the name of the collection, is Love, Death, and Cripples. And yes, I'm using the word cripples, which I'm allowed to say because I'm crippled, so I can call myself a cripple if I want to. But anyway, the name is kind of based on Love, Death, and Robots because that was a very popular television program on Netflix, I think, and this is similar in that it's dystopian. It has weird endings and weird concepts and takes into account so many different things. So I thought the title of that was appropriate for the book collection that I wanted to do. So now the hard part is finding a publisher, and it's not, imagine if you know somebody who is good at music, and they're really good at music, and maybe they even play in a couple of bars near you or something. What's the difference between playing in the bars and then playing in New York, in a major area, or Chicago or something like that? It's huge, and you can have that difference happen with books. You can have books that are teeny, with not many people that read them, and other ones that go through the larger publishers. And there are just a few very large publishers, and I would love to get into that if I could do it. But I'll give you an idea. Most publishers, the bigger ones, don't accept what's called a query, which would be, you asking them, please publish my book. Um, the best thing to do is go through an agent. An agent, um, that's the tough one, because if you can get past the agent, then you have a real good shot at being published. If you can't find an agent, then it's a lot harder to do. And I'll give you an example. Um, a New York agency might receive an agent and an agency might receive 2,000 submissions in a year, and he or she might take two or three of them. So your odds are like 1/10 to like 2/10 of a percentage of being accepted by that agent. I mean, the good news is there are hundreds of agents in New York alone, and if you're turned down by one, you can go to another, so that increases your odds. But each one will have the same odds, kind of thing. An agent, if you can get an agent, a good agent will be successful in placing probably two out of three books that he or she submits to publishers. And even that isn't easy because the editors of the publishers themselves um, might only take 1%. So the agent has relationships with publishers and the editors, and they know what that editor wants. So they only will try to get books that they will find appealing, and something that agent, I'm sorry, that publisher would be interested in doing. So the odds are not great. I'll give you an example. My first book, The Adventures of a Guy, written by a guy, um, kind of 20 years ago, I think. Um, with that book, most agents, if they turn down your your request, um, they won't say anything other than, "I'm sorry, this is not right for me, but another agent might be interested." So it's very non-helpful in a lot of cases, but in some cases they are helpful. And in this one here, the agent said, this is a great book, and I think it really truly deserves to be published, but I don't see a huge audience for it. I think you should find a small to middle publisher and go with that. But I very much encourage you to do that. So I took her advice, and I found a small publisher, and and actually got accepted by, I think, the second publisher I went to. So I got accepted right away, and then I had two books through that publisher. Um, when I went to my, I wanted to go to a higher, bigger, not higher, bigger publisher. So I went to a mid-sized one for my young adult book, Werewolf. I'm sorry, not Werewolf, Fangface. And with that one, I got a bigger one. It was Quake Books that did it, and they're part of Echelon. And with that one, I started getting involved with going to schools and talking to kids, and telling them about that kind of thing. So that's actually what led me into an interesting direction, because the sequel to Fangface was the book I mentioned a second ago by accident, Werewolf. Werewolf, my publisher wanted it, but I decided to self-publish it. And it's the first time I ever self-published a book. And the reason I did it is because to buy author copies of books was pretty expensive. Like $8 or so it took to buy a book, and then to be able to sell that to kids. And I was talking in Chicago schools, including Chicago public schools, and kids couldn't afford to spend $10 for a book. So I came up with the idea of self-publishing it, because if I self-published it, I could buy author books for about $3.50 each. So I was able to sell the books for a real low price when I was doing these visits in the schools around Chicago, and I was rewarded from it, in very good ways, because the kids could buy a book for under $5, and for one, and for number two, it got a lot of people to read my books, because they were looking at it and very interested in the books and all that. So that worked really well for me to do that, and now I kind of I've been recently more doing self-publishing with my books, because I can't get out to schools or anything like that, because of my disability or anything like that. Although I did have my construction book was published by National Association of Credit Management. So I've had three traditional publishers in a way on things. So anyway, I did want to talk about there's somebody that really wrote a really good book on what the publishing world is like today, and he wrote the book in 1989, and it's called Cyber Books by Ben Bova. And if he wasn't already an immensely successful author, there's no way any publisher would have allowed him to publish that book, because it really showed what the publishing world was like. It showed that the publishing world is more about sales, which it should be. I mean, they're capitalist country. I mean, they want to make money. That's the whole point. And some places that would do it for more educational. There are colleges and things that will have educational books and things like that they'll put out. But for the larger publishers, your Penguins and people like that, they want to make money, which they should. I completely 1,000% agree with that. That should be what they're doing. But with Ben Bova, the book that he wrote, and actually I have a copy of it there. I'll show you in a second. But what's cool about that book was it was published in 1989, and it talked about the difference. I said, there's a woman who worked at a publishing agent, or I'm sorry, she worked for a large book area publisher, and she wanted to publish this one book really bad because it was so well written and so intriguing, and she just couldn't get people on board with it because they just couldn't sell a lot of it. And meanwhile, this guy sent in this crappy book. He was kind of like a James Patterson, where anything he wrote would all of a sudden would definitely automatically have at least 1 million people buying it. So they took that book hand over foot on things, and that's the publishing world, and it's the world that it should be. I don't, like I said, I don't disagree with it at all. I think it's the right thing that they're doing, but fortunately there are places you can go to sell books that are are for a place that you're not going to have as many sales. So I get that. Um, but I do want to show you one cool thing about Ben Bova's book. Right here, this is it. If you look at the woman with the white blouse, um, that's what my wife looked like when I met her. And it's funny because when I had this book sitting on the counter one time, one of my daughters walked by and she like looks at it and goes, "What's Mom doing on the cover?" Seriously, that's it's just totally her. So I bought this book recently simply because I wanted to have it. Because of that, I thought that was really cool. But anyway, the other thing, back to my book, I've actually had some second thoughts about even doing these videos here. Because these videos, does that mean that I've already published the book? And, I did some research on it, and the answer is no, which is good, because some places, some magazines don't want to publish anything that's already been published somewhere else. A publisher might be okay with it, because if I were to get my short stories to go into magazines or something like that, then somebody who reads a magazine and reads one of my short stories might go, "Oh, what else has Norm written?" and then try to find a book and then find out that I did a whole collection. So it actually would have helped the sales of it. So I'm probably going to be approaching some magazines to see whether or not I can get them in there. But in the meantime, I have started looking for an agent, and I wrote my query, my synopsis, and uh, so and I've done some research. You have to do your research. Find an agent that matches, somebody that wants what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time and their time, and you'll get turned down. And if you even get any response at all on things, so I have found some that are interested in short stories, and I found some that were in a collection of publishers who were into diversity type things. So, being a paraplegic is a diversity thing now. So I think I found some who might be interested in the kind of stories I'm writing, and I already know that they're interested in the short stories. So those are two good things. So I have sent it out to 12 different agents, and before I send it to them, I researched the agents. I read articles that they've done, interviews that they've done, YouTube videos that they've done. So I think I got some good matches. So I'm feeling pretty good about it, but it's very possible that all 12 will turn me down, and then I'll be looking for more. The rule of thumb is if you're getting turned down, send out to at least 80 agents, 80 to 100. And if 80 to 100 won't take it, either something's wrong with your book, or something's wrong with your query, or something's wrong, something. So look at it again and try to redo things. And then another thing that you could get that does help some people find an agent is you can get a referral if you know another author, and you can then it gets you out of the slush pile, so the agent will actually look at it. If you go to the agent and say, "Hey, I was referred to you by your client so and so," that'll at least get it looked at a lot. It doesn't. It improves your chances. Not it doesn't make anything automatic. For my last book that I did not publish yet, my nonfiction book about what happened to me, I did go to Christopher Moore, who's a very best-selling author, and he referred me to his agent, and he warned me in the when he did it that she usually doesn't respond even to referrals, so give it a shot. And he was right. I never got a response from them at all. So that one there, if I can make this book here work, then that other book might be able to be sold simply because you can get readers. It's just all kind of rolls into a package kind of thing. So it's going to take some time to hear back, usually a couple of months. Some only reply if they're interested. Some use a cool computer thing called Query Tracker, where you can log on to their site and it'll say whether it's been accepted or if it's pending, or if it's been turned down. I like those a lot, because then that way you have an answer, you have a conclusive answer. The ones that say only if interested, you don't know if if your email got buried, or went into their spam or something like that, so you don't know why. So anyway, just wanted to talk about the books and the fact that I'm done with Love, Death, and Cripples. Very happy with it. The first story in it is the one where the paraplegic is on his back porch, and he encounters a squirrel, and the squirrel says, "I can heal you." So that's the first one that I did. The second story was the one called Rough, and that was one about from a dog's perspective, when his alpha comes back from being in a hospital forever. It was 3 months, but a dog doesn't know time. And so that was the second book, or I'm sorry, the second story in there. And I had some help from people, because when you have 17 stories, which one do you do first? Because an agent is not going to read past the first story. Just, if you can't get them hooked on that first story, they're not going to read 2, 3, 4, or 17. They're not going to read any of the other ones. So that first one has to hook them. And I like that story a lot. I like it because, it just starts off with him just describing what it's like on his deck. And then he says, "Oh, I'm on a wheelchair." "Oh, okay, so you learned something." And then a little later, he says, "Oh, I'm a paraplegic." "Oh, you learned something else." And then a nut gets thrown at him, an acorn gets thrown at him. So now he encounters a squirrel. "Okay, and there's another thing." And then the squirrel talks to him. So I like the way that one ramps up, and then it goes even crazier from there. So that was, if you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to that one, because that was I think that's a very appealing one, and I'm hoping that'll be the one that gets agents to accept my book, or an agent to accept my book, and send to a publisher who will accept my book, and then I'll have a book. So that's what I hope. So anyway, if you want to read up on any of my stuff, my website is www.normcowie.com. That's COWIE. And thank you for listening to me ramble on. All right, bye.